Michelle. This is my so-called handmade life, and you can find me at my blog by the same name. And I'm a so-called handmade life on Instagram. I'm Mamatronic on Ravelry and Flickr if you do Flickr. Right now, it's Roid Week on Flickr, so everyone is posting Polaroid photos into that group. It's also the hashtag Roid Week 2018 on Instagram. So I've actually been on Flickr a little more to look at those things. There's some really, really beautiful shots. So that might be worth checking out. I talked in my last episode about getting my cameras out and kind of maintaining, cleaning them up, getting batteries filmed, things that I needed for them. And I did that in time for Roid Week, and I'll tell you a little more about it in a minute. But first, I wanted to thank all of you who reached out to me the last few weeks to check on me and give me your condolences. My father passed away a few weeks ago. He fell, and because he was on blood thinners, he had a hemorrhage in his brain, and it caused severe brain trauma, so he fell asleep and didn't wake up, even after the surgery. So I really appreciated all of your prayers and kind thoughts so much. I know there are times where I will flip past through something on Instagram, and I'll see that somebody has lost a family member, or they're sick, or they're grieving in some other way, and I'll say something, but I think, is this maybe even annoying to them? I mean, who am I to comment? But I can say from personal experience several times in the last few years, it means a lot to have people show that they care about you. And it's often the moments where you're not expecting anything and you haven't looked at your phone in a few days. And for me, after the funeral, I just, my children went back to school and back to work, and they weren't going to be here. And I just felt like I needed to get out of this town. And I wanted to just go somewhere where I could walk, like on a trail somewhere. So we went to a state park, not too far from here, but anyway, it rained the whole time. The trails were closed, and I had a migraine on top of that. So it wasn't what I thought it would be, but that first night, I couldn't sleep because my head hurt, and I just felt terrible. And I turned on Instagram and saw all these kind words. If you look at my Instagram, it's my so-called handmade life. There's a picture of my family from back in the 70s, and I was a little tiny girl, and one of my dad. It's black and white. In my feed, it's just a couple of weeks back. I wrote some things that I thought about him, and then things that people shared with me at the visitation. And there's a slideshow of photos, and so many of you took the time to read that, and it made me feel good because that's it. That's the only tribute I could really give my father. So it meant a lot that you just took the moment to read it and look at it, and I just want to thank you. The first week was really hard. I feel like, I'm used to knowing that as people age, they're going to pass away. I've lost a lot of people in my life, but it was different. And when somebody is taken off of life support, it's just different than when an illness claims them, or I don't know. There's just, excuse me. Okay. I had to get my dog was, anyway, I had to adjust the tripod because he needed to sleep leaning against it. I don't know, there's just a lot of questions that were going through my head. It wasn't my decision to make, but should I have given different input? And then reading things after he had passed away about what's common with brain injuries like that. I didn't feel that he was given the appropriate amount of time. It seemed really quick. And it would have taken a miracle for him to have recovered or even woken up at all. That would have been a miracle. I understood that. And I could have accepted either way. I am accepting how things went. But I did want to feel like that everything was done right, and I didn't have a good feeling. I had a feeling of unrest inside of me, and I kept thinking, is this because I should have done something different? Should I have said something different? I mean, like I said, it wasn't my call, but maybe if I'd said something different, I wouldn't have this feeling that it just wasn't right the way it happened. So I just had to wrestle with that in prayer for a good week. And it's not the kind of question you always get an answer to, but I actually did feel an answer that, based on what I knew, which was limited information at the time, I did the only thing a person could based on that information. Had I heard more at the time, maybe I would have said, hey, let's just wait a bit longer just because that's what you do. But I knew no better. And the way that I believe is that, and this reinforced that in the end, that a life can't end without God say so. I mean, people take other people's lives, and obviously that's not good, but at some point it passes through his hands and he allows it. And no one could do anything that he didn't give the final okay on. And that helped a little. Also, I didn't have to know this either, that my dad, his personal experience of what happened, I didn't want it to be painful or sad. Our experience was awful. It was awful the day they took him off life support. It was really just not like any other. I've been with people as they died before. It's just not like that. But I wanted his experience to at least have not been that way. You know, you hear that people can hear things when they're in a coma or in a deep sleep of some sort. And I hoped that he heard. All of us came to visit. We all got to see him. We all got to talk to him. I got to tell him things that I always wanted to tell him, but he wouldn't have liked it. It would have made him feel weird because it's too emotional, you know, like just things that I appreciated about him or respected and the way I admired him. That would be a little too much for him. Normally, he didn't even like for us to sing happy birthday on his birthday, so I got to say it all because he was not going anywhere, and I hope that he heard. I hope he heard my children speaking to him, telling him they loved him. But whether he did or didn't, I know that he had a slight headache. He didn't even know he had hit his head. He actually fell and was worried about, like, he pulled something the way he landed and didn't even notice his head had been bumped. It doesn't seem like it was a really severe hit, but he bled so freely. He had a headache, and then he was a little uncoordinated and out of it, and then he went to sleep. And then maybe he heard us in the room for 5 days, and then he passed away. And I just felt confident, and I didn't have to feel this way. I'm not somebody who has to believe that God wants everything to be exactly like what makes me feel best. I don't have to believe that, obviously, because for a week I didn't. I really felt unrest about it. But after that, I don't know, it was around a week, a calm came over me, and I felt like that God was giving me a nudge, like, you know what? I controlled the moment of his passing. That was all me. No matter what anybody thought, any doctor, any person, that was all me, and I did it right. And then I was like, okay, I can handle that. I can handle it. So I think that really reveals some issues with me, feeling overly responsible. Like every little thing, thinking back, did I say what I should have? Did I do what I should have? Did I leave things as I should have? But I mean, the fact that I see it, obviously, it's not going to overtake me, and it's something to work on. But anyway, it's been a few really serious weeks around here. So let me just say, the funeral happened really quickly after a lot of people who knew him didn't know about it. And there weren't as many people there as would have been, but there was still a lot of people there. It made me feel really good. The visitation was great. I kind of dreaded it a little just because, it's hard to be together at a funeral. And my sister and I, we have been there through the hospital praying for him. We had been there holding him as he passed away, praying him through, just asking for God's mercy and presence. And the visitation was not what we expected, with so many people coming up to us and telling us things about our dad, nice things he did, the way he took care of them or helped their family members or whatever. It was just this really great joy that I felt hearing all of it. And that is what I shared in one of those Instagram posts, just little phrases that I heard 100 times over. He was pretty much, he and his brothers were a real force for good in my community. And he was a force for good on a more national level too, in a way. With his thing was, he was in the union at the refinery where he worked, and refineries are a big deal in Southeast Texas. And in the 70s and 80s, he was part of the labor movement, big time. And so it affected how things went in other parts of the nation. He was the chairman of the Workmen's Committee. He led a lot of strikes and fought for civil rights at the plant. In fact, one of my last visit with him, I would go have coffee with him every week. My sister and I happened to be there on the same day, and I was asking him about the civil rights movement at the plant, and he said that when he hired on, people of color, basically black people, could not promote. They had no seniority. They never left this little floor, or building called the D-Dent building. I don't know what they called it. It's where they took dents out of large barrels. And that was it for them. That was as far as they could go. And so after, things started changing in the 60s, I think it was around 67, the union and he and other people who were part of it really fought for them to get the right to promote up, to get raises, and to work in different areas at the plant. And so when they got that right, a lot of them got retroactive seniority. And that displeased a lot of union members because they were going to get replaced with somebody with dark skin, and or someone would have more seniority over them. So it was kind of tricky, but it was the right thing to do. And I was just really proud about that he was part of. That's one of many things he was a part of. And I asked him if he ever disagreed with the union on a national level, and he said he couldn't think of anything. And then I asked him if my mother had ever disagreed. She died when I was about almost 13, and so he smiled so big, and he said that once his employers offered him a supervisor's position where he wouldn't be able to be in the union anymore, but he would have flexible hours, more time off, and better pay that would help with all of these trips we were taking to Houston for cancer treatments. All of the bills were racking up. He had never taken off sick from work before, but he was using all of his sick days to be with her. And they offered him that position. He said, well, let me talk to her. And he went home and he asked her about it, and she said, well, you told them, didn't you? He said, I didn't tell them anything. I wanted to ask you. She said, well, you told them you're union. You can't take that job. That's not what you believe in. And he just smiled, and he was laughing, thinking about how she supported it. She got who he was, what he was about. It wasn't all about raises and promotions. He had a cause he wanted to be part of. So I thought it was a really nice conversation. And I planned to ask him more about it and record it. He wouldn't probably have wanted me to record him talking about his life, but if it was under the guise of, and I was interested in his work in the labor movement of the 60s through the 80s, he would have really enjoyed talking about that. The day I wanted to start that is the day he fell, so I didn't get to do that. But it was really great. at his visitation, to have so many people come through and say what a difference he made in the workplace for them. Just from being a good neighbor, to a good friend, visiting sick relatives, to helping people with their job. One man said, "Your father was a natural born leader." And I knew from things I'd asked him in the past that he had a lot of sticky situations where, say as a union representative, he had to represent people that didn't always do their job well. It's hard enough to represent someone when there's a large company that's coming against them. But what if they really aren't doing a great job and the company has a point? That's a tricky situation, and I remember several stories where he tried to get around that to see that the right thing was done while representing someone. He took it serious that people should do their job well and then be treated well for a good job. So anyway, it was just a little something about him. It was a nice visitation. And then a day later or 2 days later, seeing all of your kind words was just so great. It meant a lot to me. So anyway, that's how I'm doing. I'm going to be okay. I'm feeling pretty calm about the whole thing. For a while there, I was really worked up on the inside. I was sad and grieving, and I was also just had this sick feeling about the way things happened. I don't know if that'll ever fully go away. But for my part, I feel good about the role I played toward the end of his life. And I am so thankful that we ended up moving back home to my hometown. About 15 years ago, I wasn't excited to come home. But I got to have a better relationship with my father because of it. We grew a lot closer because we didn't always get along when I was a teenager. And that was really good, and my kids got to know him. So I was going to ask you all how you cope with grief. We've talked about how we kind of drum up happiness in our life, but grief in particular, do you have any hints or tips for me? I think I'm doing okay, but sometimes when everything calms down a month or two later, you don't feel so great. I had one I was going to share with you. There was a day where I needed to get out and walk because my back was hurting and I needed my walk. But I was afraid if I walked down the street I would be crying and blubbering and red eyes and snotty, and I just didn't want to be a spectacle. And so I started listening to this music that just makes me think of when my children were little. Vito Oliveras, and I couldn't cry, Because how do you cry when you're listening to this, we looked up what kind of music it is. It's kind of like Hispanic Zydeco to me. Norteño? Anyway. Cumbia de la Cobra is the song. Anyway, it's from this album called Zoologico Tropical, and it's all animal songs, and all the music sounds like different animals. It's just cute, and every time I would listen to it, it would kind of, okay, I'm not gonna cry now. I got through this moment, and I'd keep doing something, and later that day it would hit me, and I would just anyway. So that's that was my coping mechanism, one of them. Obviously, I prayed a lot, but and then I went for walks as soon as the rain quit. Being outdoors has helped. Knitting, obviously, is therapy. You can see I finished my test knit. I finished a lot of stuff. So let me tell you what I finished first. This is what I actually finished when I was sitting in the hospital by his bedside. I just spent as much time in there as I could. I finished these socks called "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." It's by Danny George, who she does Little Bobbin's podcast. And I love this pattern. Actually, the actual pattern has a little Christmas tree design up the leg, but I omitted that for this pair. My first pair has it, but I just wanted, I wanted her heel flap basically. I did this little twisted rib section here. I went ahead and did that, but I mostly just loved her heel directions on the sock. It's just the neatest. I mean, I don't know if you can see, you really can't see any gaps. There's none. It is so flawless. It's just the best directions for a traditional heel flap that I've seen. So I finished the second sock, and I also started this Michelle colorway that Julianne of Lovebird Lane Yarns, sorry. She also has the My Mudlings podcast. She did this colorway based on me. She did a self-striping collection based on some of her favorite podcasters, and I was one of them, which is just really crazy, but also really neat. Just really made me so happy to see, and I really think she did a great job picking these colors. They are very much like something that I would wear. I mean, just this purple stripe, you know, you can see what I've got on here. The blue makes me, it looks like my faded jeans, definitely. And then this color looks like a faded red in the ball, but as I knit it up, it's actually a little more of like a faded burgundy or mauve color, which I've knit a lot of in the last few years. Hats, a lot of hats in that color, and some sweaters. And just a few years ago, I made the decision to break out of my little color rut. I was knitting a lot of earth tones like browns, greens, and then teal, like blue-green. So I wanted to try something different, and I moved to purple and red and, you know, gold. So just, I have done a lot of purple. So anyway, and you can see in my sea glass and driftwood test knit sweater here, more purple. So I really love these. And this is just some stroll tonal, like, I don't remember what it is, pearlescent maybe. Anyhow, I just, I love the way these turned out. I made the leg a little bit shorter. I wanted that perfect length for Converse and Docs. I think that I got it right. And I should have enough of this left for maybe even all or part of some shorty socks. We'll see. But I've enjoyed working on it so much, and it's given me pause. It's strange to have someone make something kind of based on you, especially when you feel kind of unseen a little. I'm just a little kind of in my own little quiet world, and it was flattering and strange. And also, I mean, I just was thinking a lot as I started this sock right here. I started the cuff. What, who am I really, you know? I don't know how I come across to other people, but I'm probably pretty hard on myself. And then just as I finished it, dealing with losing another relative, somebody I love, my father figure, you know, my father. Who am I? You know, who are you when you're suddenly one of the oldest people in your family? And there's no one to run to for a last minute okay, or like we would go to our dad. I would, not for his permission, I'm an adult. But I had an idea, and I just wanted to hear what he thought about it. Like, say, maybe a repair we would make to our home or something. So how does that sound? And he would say, I don't know, I don't really know about that. Or maybe he would say, you might think about, it was usually a really good idea, something I wouldn't have thought about because he had the experience, I didn't. And you just like that last little okay. It gives you a little more confidence. There is no one to do that with now. Who am I? Am I some matriarchal figure now? I don't think so. I don't know. I just thought about that a lot. Who is Michelle? It makes me think of that Jackie Chan movie, Who Am I? At the beginning, he screams out, "Who am I?" Google it or watch it. It's a pretty funny, for a Jackie Chan type show, it's pretty funny. I need something to drink. I'm sorry, I'm very thirsty. There's a lot packed in here because I haven't been talking to you in a while, and a lot of things have collected. I told you I would like to know some of your coping mechanisms for grief. This is not a happy question topic for a giveaway, but let's just be real. Who is not grieving or concerned about it? I want to show you some more of my finished makes, but I wanted to tell you that Vanessa Townley, you probably know her as Kill to Craft on Instagram, and then she's got the Kill to Craft podcast. I don't know where I first saw Vanessa. I think maybe Instagram. No, maybe on Ravelry, because she knit a lot of pom-pom quarterly patterns, which I have all of the pom-pom issues, but I haven't knit but one. I can't believe that. One pattern. I love, like, every issue has so many things I want, and several recently have had, I wanted to knit everything in them. But I think I get hooked into certain knit-along groups, and then it just kind of dominates what I do. So she has, she sent me a copy of a pattern that she had in pom-pom, and I thought, well, I didn't remember her having a pattern. And I would have it because I own the issues, but she sent me the copy and then a copy for one of you. And it is the Oak Crest hat pattern. I'm going to find it here. The reason I didn't remember that she designed it is because it was under a different name. I believe maybe due to her work or something, maybe what she does for a living. She couldn't use her real name. So it's under a different name, but this is the hat pattern. I hope this will zoom in well for you. It's got a cute little knot in the back. It's also on the back, but this has a lot of flair, this picture. I don't know how clear it is. Let's see. Just cute. I really like that. So you can make it kind of slouchy, but the knot instead of a pom-pom is really different. I think that's a cute, cute idea. Let's see if there's one more photo of it. All of these photos are very artistic, but I don't know how well you can pick them up when I just hold them up in front of my camera. But anyway, it takes worsted weight, and one of you needs to win this free pattern. I'm actually going to start one. I wanted to have it, already have begun it for this episode, but I'm just finally kind of catching up with things in my life, and I didn't get there yet. But I've considered what yarn I want to use. It's got a pretty interesting cabling going on, plus the little knot. I think I don't want to use too busy of a yarn. I do have some hand-painted yarn, but I think it would actually distract from the really, I don't know, architectural type cable lines, the way they meet up at the crown. So I kind of was thinking about some neutral things. Like I have some Patton's Natural Mix. It's like a kind of a, I don't know, a light tan, very plain heathered yarn. It's just a great sweater, cabled sweater yarn. I have plans to make a sweater in that. So I've got some from one lot, a little from another, and I thought that little bit I could do this hat in it. Or there's some Knit Picks. This is Capra DK. So Capra is got a cashmere content to it. So it's merino plus cashmere. This is just a nice camel brown color. And let me make sure, I'm not sure if this is worsted or DK. I always substitute DK for worsted and the other way around, and I never noticed the difference, but you might want to know. It's worsted, because it called for Lark by Quince & Co. So I do have this DK Capra. I have the Pattons, and what I would really like, I know somewhere I have that brown tweed that has the little flecks of gold and just different colors in it. It's really nice. I couldn't find it. It's like I have leftovers somewhere here in my house, but because it's like leftover from a sweater and all, it just kind of gets relegated to the bottom of some bin, and I don't keep track of where it is. But I kind of actually would like it the best, but I'm thinking that the Patton's Natural Mix or this camel color probably would be the best way to go. We'll see. So anyway, if you would like to win this, leave a comment. Just some coping mechanisms for dealing with grief and hard times. Just be one idea, two, whatever. And if you want to actually win the pattern, leave your Ravelry name or your email. But if you're on Ravelry, I would do Ravelry, because then it's stored in your Ravelry library and Vanessa can just shoot the pattern to you. So Ravelry name or email if you're not on Ravelry. But if you're a knitter and you're not on Ravelry, you really ought to be. You really ought to consider joining. I don't think there's a wait anymore. It's not like it used to be. It's instant, and it is instant because my daughter joined recently. My daughter joined Ravelry. I was so excited. I took her to Hill Country Weavers and bought her yarn to make a scarf and a hat, and oh my goodness, she was completely overwhelmed. You can imagine, Hill Country Weavers is like the biggest mega, to me, yarn store that's independently owned of any in Texas. I've been to, the Madeline Tosh store was pretty awesome, and WC Mercantile is great too. And I know West 7th Wool, people talk about it. McKinney Knittery, I haven't been to those, but it's one of the big ones, okay, in Texas. And her head was spinning. But I was so happy that she was going to do it. And I think she started the Wheat Scarf by Tin Can Knits, which is a good basic. It's a free pattern. But then she got mad at it, and so I don't think she's finished. But I got her yarn to try something like the Weekender sweater. It's a Marled Patterns yarn, and I said, you know what? It's not expensive yarn. If you felt it, if it gets all tangled up and you hate it and you want to throw it away, I won't be offended. And so she's pretty excited about that. I haven't given it to her, but so anyway, hey, if you're out there, Julia, you might win this if you leave a comment and say your, not Pom Pom, I'm sorry, not the magazine, this pattern. If you leave a comment with, I don't know, a coping mechanism that you have for times of grief, Ravelry name or email. All right, that's been done. So I'm going to knit Oak Crest next, and I'm very excited, especially if I get to work with this soft, yummy yarn. I like knit picks and patterns. You'll see a lot of it, especially for sweater quantities. I'm not like hung up on using only the finest, though I like the idea of natural and ethically sourced, and we've talked about all of that before. I have a lot of patterns and knit picks though, from days gone by, mega sales at my Joann or something. So one thing I did that's a different type of yarn for me is the Cardamom Coffee Hat by Caitlin Hunter. I wanted to join her Rambling Rhinebeck cowl. And if you join the cowl, you are able to get the little pin that she did. Let me show you. It's the cutest design. Ooh, do we have it here? Yeah. My dog ate on it. Oh, my dog, okay, this is really too much information. My dog chewed on it, and then my cat threw up a little on it, so I wiped it off. And I'm showing it to you. That's just pet life. But anyway, it's the cutest pin. I really love knitting, so pin or a patch. And I think after all of the knit along participants have had their shot at getting this, the Farmer's Daughter fibers will be selling them to anyone in the public. They're just the cutest pin. Her Ramblin' Woman cardigan, she, kind of debuted it at Rhinebeck, and it's based on all that, I don't know, glitzy country glam of the 80s and 70s. Like Dolly Parton is who I think of, and I love Dolly Parton. Oh my gosh. The whole way we went to Tennessee, we listened to Dolly's greatest hits, all the way from Mule Skinner's Blues to, Islands in the Stream. And even later stuff. So I just love that, and I'm going to knit that cardigan at some point because it calls for 7 single skeins of color. So I mean, like, I have a Madeline Tosh skein here, or this or that, and just combine them all, and you're good. But this is Cardamom Coffee. Totally off the subject, wasn't it? I did this in the Farmer's Daughter fiber in the Sukapi, I think that's how you say it, base of yarn, and it's Montana Rambouillet. So it's a singles base, which I thought without twist that might not be best for color work, but apparently lots of people do singles in color work. And the original sample that Caitlin did was in Madeline Tosh Merino Light, which is a single. And you know, as you wear it, it kind of gets that fuzzy halo. I know Tosh Merino does. And it almost has sort of a, what's the word, airbrushed to me. It makes me think of an airbrushed Fair Isle print. So I figured this could be similar. And you know, after it was soft, softer than I thought it would be. But after blocking, it really bloomed, and it's even softer. I don't think that you can see, there's a slight halo to it, but it's really nice. It's got a good fit. I mean, I can put it on, but now I'm going to be a goofball with my my mega bun here. I have pictures. Maybe I can insert them. I still have a end to weave in. And this is like pom-pom, a faux fur pom-pom from Fabunets, but it's got 3 F's, FF Fabunets on Etsy. All of the things I talk about, from, you know, stuff I use to this, it will be on in my notes in the description box. I hope. I love this song. I really want to get up and dance. I hope that YouTube doesn't erase my existence because I played those things without rights, but I'm just telling you, it's Vito Olivares. I'll link him. It's great. It's great music, and it's impossible to feel terrible while you listen to it. Or it's impossible to take anything to heart. You just want to laugh a little or smile. So I finished Cardamom Coffee, and I actually ordered another skein of this off-white nappy color. I forget what the pink is. I love the pink. I have a ton of it left because, you know, it's a perfect accent color, but I loved it so much I really wish that the whole hat had it all through it. I had a skein of this Rank Bronc brown colorway that I never even used, so I have enough for another one of these, or because I ordered some more of this nappy colorway, or I could do a different hat. I was thinking of, is it Busta Beanie? A Fair Isle print that calls for fingering weight. This is a fingering weight yarn. It's kind of almost a thick and thin appearance to it. Anyway, it's just a good, nice, fun project. Felt really natural and real as I knit with it. You know, I asked you guys if you were had ever tried that experiment of being only positive to someone for a certain amount of time. And the example in the book I was reading, which I haven't read on since because all that stuff happened, The Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin, she talks about someone she knows that, I mean, didn't think even didn't let herself say negative things about someone behind their back, certainly not to their face, or even think it. And it helped her with a work relationship that would have been difficult because of all the negative things she had heard about this person. So I asked you guys if you had ever done that, and some of you have, and it worked out okay. Some didn't, but I was going to try it myself with my husband. I mean, we weren't like fighting like cats and dogs or anything, but you know how you can nag or complain. Like, I tend to want to address things immediately, you know, like, well, why did you do this? You said you were gonna do whatever. You know, it's just a question. I want to understand, but it also to him comes across as a complaint. So I was going to do that, but then like 2 days into it, I'd screw up. Then all this stuff happened with my father, and I ended up having a good week of time in which to practice this with someone else. And it was eye-opening for me because I want to like address things quickly, and usually I like to get things off my chest. And I don't just mean like this thing you did bothered me to someone. I mean, like when I feel like I did something wrong, I want to tell someone immediately. Like I just need to make this right now. So that's like in my nature. And I don't think that's terribly bad, but there are probably times where it's best to just wait. Is this even worth bringing it up? And so taking a week to say nothing. Just wait and see. Try to understand what's happening, process things, be quiet. I did see that there were a lot of things that just let it go. Just let it go. And a week later, you probably won't care about it. So that was a good experience for me. But then I also saw things that after a while, it's not changing. It's not going to get better on its own. Maybe it would be worth speaking about, depending on who the person is. Sometimes, it's limited contact, so why bother? But if it was someone you were seeing regularly, that you lived with or worked with, it might be worth talking to them about. So for me, I got that experience of just wait. Wait and sit on it and just see how you feel in a week. That's a little unusual for me. So the experiment was good for me in that respect. Sarah said that I guess she's sort of practicing that with her mom now, just because when she was younger, she would vent on her mom, and her husband helped her see that she was doing it. It's like she didn't even catch it. Probably it's just a natural thing that we take from childhood or teen years into our adulthood, and moms are that safe person to vent to. And so she didn't even realize that's not normal, and her husband helped her see it, and then she was able to knock it off. Carmen brought up the phrase, as a man thinks, so he is. And if she meditates on the negative stuff about people, she will treat them differently. She won't treat them as though they're worth better treatment. And then she doesn't want to be the one to be crummy to someone just because she's been thinking negative thoughts, ruminating on them all day, which that makes sense. Lisa had the idea of giving herself a set time to think on a problem or a negative relationship. When she goes for a walk, she gives it all the focus, kind of works it through it, and then leaves it when she gets back home. But that's when she sets aside the time to deal with it, but then that's that. So she finds a place for it where it doesn't take over. Pammy, was it Pammy? Let's see. No, it was Lisa also who said that if she lets her negativity just kind of runs wild with it with someone, it will seep into other relationships, other parts of her life. Things will all just have a negative cast. So it's important to her to control how long she will think these sort of negative thoughts. Katinka did try positive only in a work situation, and it worked for a time, and then it blew up in her face, and she had to set some boundaries. And I don't know that setting boundaries, I don't know that I would even see that as negative. But if in setting them you have to explain to someone, you did this thing, this isn't okay, I'm setting this boundary, it would come across as a criticism to them, and maybe even would be a criticism, though it may be necessary. But when she set these boundaries, she continued to treat them with respect and kindness, and it turned things around. So it was positive in the end. She just had to set those boundaries. Rosamond also had a work situation where she tried positive only and really didn't experience the problems she thought she would with someone, and was so pleasantly surprised. But after a while, they began to relax into their old patterns, and she had to deal with it. Of course, she was the superior in the work situation, so that's a little different. But she, as far as relationships, like with her husband, he's very respectful of her, and so she doesn't find that she has to bring up many topics with him, but if she does, he's listening, they're on it, they work through it together pretty quickly, which is really healthy. It sounds super healthy. Louise was kind of with me thinking her husband would think it was odd if she did some of the things that Gretchen talks about in this book, like rather than saying something that sounds nagging, like, you said you were going to fix the I don't know, whatever appliance, she would just say, the appliance. And her husband would be like, oh, and go do it. I don't know. That sounds very, I would think it would be obnoxious. I wouldn't like that, really. I'd rather someone just say. But he appreciated just the reminder, not the nag. But Louise was saying her husband might think that's weird. Pammy admits that she does complain. But she tends to hold her gripes in for a long period of time, and so then when they come out, it comes out in force, you know. Jen also does that occasionally with her kids. Things build up and then she explodes on them and feels really bad for it later, especially when it comes to like helping around the house. But I mean, Jen, that's what kids do. They don't help. I mean, no, that's not fair to say, but it's kind of falls on the mom a lot to remind, get them to do it, you know, become the marionette and puppet their arms and make them wash each dish correctly. And, you know, it's way more work to get them to do it than just to do it yourself. And it's imbalanced. That's what kids do. I can totally see losing your temper once in a while, because I think all of us have. But both Jen and Pammy are working on it. It's not like it's an out of control thing. So I also asked you guys what you would like to see more of. Louise liked seeing my family. I showed some old photos when I talked about my cameras in the last episode. Sarah Jane made the recommendation that I should be a knitwear photographer. Well, let me tell you, Sarah, that's something I would really like to do. I would like to work with someone to photograph some things, their designs or a project or whatever. I really would like to do more of that kind of thing. I don't know that I have the skill, but I like it. And I feel like if you fiddle around enough, you get a decent image with a digital camera. It's pretty easy. Lisa wants to see what I do with all those cameras that I had talked about and showed you some of them. In fact, I showed you that I had this Yashica. It's an Electro 35 GSN. It's just a great rangefinder, 35 millimeter, and I didn't have a lens for it. All this time I brought it on several big family trips, carried it in a backpack, take pictures of nature, all without a lens cap. So in the last few weeks, I did a little emotional spending, just a little. And I went and got the things I needed to maintenance these cameras some. So I got that lens cap, and I got a set that went with it of like a wide angle and a telephoto lens, each with their original lens cap. In the case, an extra strap, and the case has a strap, and then a battery adapter, because finding the right battery for this camera is very hard now. So this is a good option as far as vintage cameras. I'll have the kind of Yashica it is. It's really well known by 35 millimeter vintage camera enthusiasts, you know, for taking a really good picture. I feel like all of my photos I've taken with it are special, but I'm just super nostalgic about everything. So that's a good option though, if a person wants to do vintage cameras, because I told you about Polaroid Week. It is like I pulled out some of my one steps that I haven't actually ever used 600 cameras before. The film for this is really expensive. It's like 8 photos per pack, and each pack is like $20 or something. It's not, it's just not very, you have to be really careful with each photo you compose, and I composed a bunch of stinkers with this right off the bat, a bunch of blurry selfie pics, and then you know, things like that 35 millimeter camera, you can still get that kind of film at, say, a Walgreens or a CVS, and a lot of them will still develop your film. Now they send it away, they don't do it in store, and that's a risk, but it's actually pretty cheap if you get it done through Walgreens. So I like that as an option for vintage cameras. It's pretty affordable. You still have to consider your shots though. It's not like having a digital camera and taking 100 shots and keeping one. But I did want to show you some of the things I did with this camera, this Polaroid One Step. I only used one of them. I gave one to my daughter and I cleaned all 3 of mine up, but I just picked one to use. And I don't know how well these will turn out. Like blurry, bad photos. Yeah, that's just, isn't that just awesome with my blurry face? The dog's face in the photo behind me is really clear though. I got that. A bunch, like my dog made me so mad. I wanted to get some pictures of him and just use them as a subject. All they do is lay around all day long. And now they couldn't be still, not for 1 second while I took a photo. He kind of did here. And these photos are all a little off kilter, right? Because the viewfinder is in a different position. It's not right behind where the lens is. So I had to keep all of that in mind, and I'm not used to that. I haven't used just tons of blurry dog photos. Oh, this one was pretty decent, of a sunset. You can see the refinery. It's my beautiful view in my side yard. I went ahead and decided to do, Kristen of Wool and Vine Yarn has her little blog that she started, and she has a, like a photo challenge she was going to do. I don't know that she's actually done it, but I thought, well, this lines up pretty well with Roid Week. I mean, I'm late doing it. I had a lot happening in my life, so I didn't do it when it was starting, but I thought after the fact, I'll just kind of use some of these photo prompts, and I've mixed them up, and a few that came out good. Now these were taken with my SX70 that I showed you. You had asked Lisa, so I'm showing you that, oops, the SX70 is just folded up. Another thing I did was I found a vintage case for it. So it's actually the real deal sturdy case that it goes in, and I liked having the real case that fits it. I feel just it's a little more protected. But the SX70 is so much easier to use. You can get within like a foot of your subject. The focus, you can control your focus manually. You have a little wheel to control lightening and darkening. Let's see if that comes out. I wonder why it won't focus. My favorite. This is my favorite right here. My neighbor's cat who lives on top of our roof most of the time now. He really loves observing my training with my dogs. I'm training the big one, Ella, in rally class. And I've just been kind of out of it, and I missed 2 weeks because of the funeral and my father, and I went back and I was just the loser of the class. I'm like that bad mom who fusses at her kid, but everyone knows she's really the reason the kid's bad. That's how I felt. All the other big wild dogs had calmed down, but mine was just still doing dolphin hops up in the air. Yeah, I just had to toughen up with her. I just didn't feel like stress and strife, but yeah, I got it under control. But anyway, the neighbor's cat watches us. And I walk all around, down the street and around, and he follows to the edge of the house where he can best see us. And he's just kind of considering how I'm training. Sarah had wanted to see footage of my rally class. I'm going to do that. Maybe when I test her, I'll get some footage of her testing. And then in January, there's a competition, and I'll probably take her for the fun of it, but I'm not really interested in titles. I just want to work with the animal. I like doing that. Jen wants another knit along because we did the Junko June and July, and that was very successful for me because you guys got me to finish a pretty large sweater, and I love it. I love that sweater. And I have photos I might show you in this episode here, or I might just wait. I finally got photos. And then Chaitanya begins with a C on Instagram. She commented there that she would like to see some of my knits from years past. And kind of hear the review of how they've lasted, how I enjoy wearing them, because we've been friends a few years now. We met at a Hohi and Vera, kind of like a workshop they did at the Madeline Tosh store, and Chaitanya has done a lot of test knits, and she's a really extremely talented, gifted knitter, and so I would like to hear about hers too. So yeah, I thought it would be fun to do sort of a review of knits from the past. Anyway, you guys told me what you're working on, and I might mention that or show some pictures next week. I wanted to tell you about some things that I'm wanting to knit. I'm not sure when. I'm not sure. I guess I should finish up with what I'm working on at the moment. You know, I'm still working on my floozy, but I didn't bring it at all when I was going to the hospital because I was still on the yoke. I just had a bit left to do on it. I didn't want to mess it up. It wasn't very portable. It's in a big old bag, so I brought socks instead, and that's what I worked on. So I need to get back to this. It's really beautiful. It's the Floozy by Libby Johnson of Truly Myrtle. She's Truly Myrtle Photos on Instagram. This is yarn from Floozy Yarn, and it's really nice. Cashmere. I don't think I've ever knit with cashmere for a sweater. I don't believe I have. It has such a silk, a little bit of a silk sheen to it, the softness of cashmere and merino. It's just feels very fine. And I can't wait to finish it. As soon as I finish the yoke and get past the arms, it's going to be a good TV knit because it will be, you know, stockinette body. And then arms. That won't be bad at all. I just hadn't had a place over the last few weeks where I could just have the brain power to do that color work. These other things I've shown you, like the hat, that was already done. Another one that I pulled out because I just needed to do sleeves was my Sunset Highway by Caitlin Hunter. This is my first Caitlin Hunter pattern to do, but I didn't get very far. I mean, I started it, I don't know, maybe in February or March of last year. And so I've got Madeline Tosh Chicory, a Knit Picks Cully colorway, Vine, I Am No Bird is this like pinkish brown, and then a Homespun House Digital Bath. And I alternated skeins on that, but I think for the sleeves I won't bother because they're so similar. I'm just running out of I Am No Bird for the skeins, the sleeves. You might be able to see here and there I striped in some Peepaloo Fields yarn that kind of looked like it, just because I was so afraid. And then I also have the puffy, like it almost looks like puff sleeves on purpose because I just held my floats too tightly with this chicory, but it'll block out, and I'm being way more loose on this part. So anyway, I started those sleeves and I didn't realize, I wasn't thinking about the fact that there is color work, and my brain kept messing up. I just haven't been in a good place for color work. So I made a bunch of mistakes. But I'm pretty much past the color work now on the sleeve, and I can finish that easy enough. And what I did do that was color work, after the funeral, I worked on finishing this test knit that I'm wearing for Annie Lupton. This is a Sea Glass and Driftwood, and Annie is Boho Chic Fiber Co. on Instagram. Let me show you. I'm going to have some photos, hopefully. Hopefully I'll have a blog post out before I put this episode on, but you can see this is a I-cord bind off. I thought it might be too floppy and loose, but it really isn't. It's looking fine. And I did the size small. When I finished the small, it was fitted. It wasn't tight at all, but it was a fitted sweater, which it looked nice. Some of them that I saw were fitted, but I kind of liked the fit that Annie had. She had a little more oversized, and I wanted more of a medium fit. But I knew when I signed up to do it, I didn't have enough of this purple color to make a medium. So I did the small, but I've blocked it a little for width. So you can see there's a little It fits between a small and medium size. It's not quite as big as a medium would be on me, but it's got some room, definitely. And these sleeves, they're not tight at all. There is plenty of room there. And I could always widen things more if I wanted, but I really like the fit that I have here. I like the neckline, all of it. I did modify the neckline. It was the first I-cord bind off I did, and it just seemed to flop over and show the reverse too much. So I tried it again, and then I did kind of a rolled neckline, sort of like what I did on my, I know I showed this to you guys, but I don't think I showed you when the ends were woven in. My big, bulky, easy one by Joji Locatelli. You see the Patton's black tweed? It has a kind of a roll neck. And I just did that basically on this one. So it has the look of the I-cord, but it didn't seem to roll as much. Now, like I said, the rolling looked really bad before I blocked it on the hem. And I was careful not to be too loose with my bind off, nor too tight. I was very mindful. But after blocking, it looks fine. Even with, like, if it was fitted, it would be fine. But when you have a little extra room and you want it a little flowy, that's when it might flip up. So it didn't. It did really well. So anyway, I love this. I used 3 skeins of Hawthorne by Knit Picks. They're multi-fingering hand-painted yarn. So it's discontinued. It was Knob Hill was the colorway, and I bought it super, super cheap, and that's why I got it in the first place. And I wasn't sure how I would use it. It is not tonal. It is more variegated, but it is a more, I would say, subdued variegated color. And you can see a little bit of stripes. Like, I think I'm gonna take this off because it's really warm. I just wore it for you guys. It's like 80 something outside. Oh, please tell me I didn't mess up my sweater. Thank you. Okay. When I hold it up, not wearing it, you can really see the, you can see there's a bit like the variegated, there's, what is it called? Spiraling, pooling. It is not strictly tonal. The white, the off-white it's pearlescent, and that is a tonal off-white, but I really like the effect. I think it worked. I'm so glad that it did. And I had something special to do with these 3 skeins because I always liked that Knob Hill colorway, but I wouldn't spend the money on it. And then when it was like $5 a skein, I grabbed it in a sale. And I just thought, I'm not sure what I'll do with 3 skeins. I'm so glad I found a sweater to use it on. I alternated. No, I didn't alternate at all through the body. I started to, and then I was like, you know what? This looks the same when I don't alternate. So I didn't. I began alternating in one sleeve, and then it was like, you know what? I went to not alternating, and you really can't see a difference. So it was one that it worked to do it that way. So it's a great pattern. She has it out, I think at Rhinebeck, or right before Rhinebeck, she opened it up released it. That's the word. And it's really worth doing. It looks so intricate and impressive, but the truth is that each part is just a few rows repeated over and over. So you start memorizing them. And it was difficult to pick up after all that stress in my life, but I was mostly at the sleeves. Pretty much I was done with the body. So it was sleeves, and that wasn't hard to do. You know, binding off, but none of that is too complicated for my brain when I'm stressed out. So I was glad to have it finished. So I've shown you those. What else do I have here? I think that's all for my projects that I'm working on. I told you I was going to start Oak Crest next. So something I wanted to do. Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I wanted to show you guys this. See what you think. You know, Caitlin Hunter has had used spin cycle yarns in several of her patterns, and it's like all the rage now, which I can see why. It looks like hand spun. Their yarn is really nice, and I think I showed you a couple episodes ago that I got Mississippi Marsala. Oh, the lighting is so weird in here. And I got it for the Guthrie pattern, and I want to use this Fedora Brown from Knit Picks as the background color. So that's kind of a way to make a little more of an affordable sweater. You still have that look of that hand spun specialty yarn, but then your background color doesn't have to be tonal or variegated or hand spun. It can be a basic, good basic. And I wasn't sure how this would look in person, but I knew all of these colors would look nice. You know, like a light teal, pink, yellow. They would all look good, and blue would look good with brown. So I think that's going to make a nice Guthrie. And this is a pretty busy version she's got going on there. She's using 2 tonal or variegated yarns together. But you can see all the patterning. My brown would just be the background. In fact, here's a good one that shows a stark contrast between the Fair Isle and the... Yeah, so mine would look a little more like that. And I'm excited about starting that, but I was, Andrea Mowry came out with her night shift shawl, which you've probably seen. It's really great. It has a woven blanket look to it, and she's using a really wide variety of colors, all spin cycle Dream State yarn, which is similar to this, just more of a worsted weight. I think it's worsted or sport weight. Anyway, it's I kind of looked at all of her colors, how she did it, and there were 2 or 3 that looked like just a consistent marl of a dark and a light shade that are similar, just marled. And then there are 2 or 3 or 4 more that are variegated and, you know, hand spun together. So I could not afford to do that. No. So with all spin cycle, which is the recommended yarn, but I know there are lots of people doing the hand spun look, and I went online and I saw somebody, I don't remember her Ravelry name, but she had started the night shift shawl, and her Instagram name is Keener CR, I think, and she was using Stonehenge fiber crazy yarn is what it's called, and it is very wildly variegated, but you can see lots of stuff within this. There are colors to tie each one in, but you know, how well will it work? I can't say. I'm just really excited to try. I've never used hand spun or anything like it. And then we have 2 more. I mean, this is going to be a very variegated shawl. But here's what I thought. Some of those spin cycle colors that Andrea Mowry used are similar to these in variegation. And if it's just too wild, I can always substitute in some yarns that I have on hand. I could do 2 fingering weight yarns, and I could marl them together to make, a substitute for her very consistent marled colors, like that deep blue and red or burgundy that she used. I could, use some of my sock yarn to do that for 1 or 2 shades if I needed to, just to tone these down. But I'm excited to try and see, and I'm interested to see what, her name is, I think Keener CR is what it was. I'm interested to see how hers comes out. I have my picture of this on Instagram, and she commented on it. I'm using those, and I'm like, you're the one! You're the one I got the idea from. So that's something I want to do, but not right away. I mean, I have all these other things to finish that are on the needles. Another Andrea Mowry thing is her Nurtured. She's just coming out with so much stuff. Her Nurtured pullover. Firefly Fibers had a sale on the Julie Aslin Nurtured yarn, and it's so pretty. This colorway that I'm using, it's not the one she used here, but it is similar. It's called Court Point. See that textured raglan shape? I love. But it's cropped. I decided to use Court Point, and because of the sale at Firefly Fibers, it was a really good deal. And I had like Firefly Fiber points, reward points too, that I collected. I like using Firefly Fibers because they will do pre-orders for books. Like say I have a little craft money I'll set aside each month for books or knitting patterns or something. When I have it set aside and they do a pre-order for a Lane or Lina, I don't know what the consensus is on how to pronounce this yet. They'll have a pre-order on it. If I have the money right then, I'll say, okay, yeah, let me go ahead and pre-order it, because I'll forget otherwise, and then it'll come out, and by the time I have craft money saved again, it'll be sold out. So I enjoy that they do the pre-orders. Plus, they just have a good selection of stuff. And what I did was, at the time that I bought this Nurtured yarn, I got Cocoa Sweater Workshop Cocoa Knits. So Julie Weisenberg has apparently a really great shoulder style, like sleeve fit, that I'm interested in, because a lot of people have said it's like the best fitting sweaters they've ever made once they learned her method, and so I'm interested in what that is. I'm also interested in starting Handy Woman by Kate Davies. Isn't this a great cover? Look at this cover art. It looks like an embroidered diagram of the brain and vascular system. I don't know. It's really neat. And the story I read on her blog, as her and her husband publishing it themselves so that she could edit it the way she wanted and not worry about it being too niche. Make it niche, make it what she wants it to be. I thought that was so inspiring. There's not enough of that happening. And with the potential that we have for that, I just find it really exciting when I see that someone is doing that. So, still want to do jelly donuts. I have, like I said, I had some stashes of knit picks and patterns that I would like to use. Probably some knit picks and do a classic color for this. This is just a detail shot of the sweater. It's a cabled jacket or cabled cardigan with toggle closures, and it's all over cables. It's just really going to be fun, wintry knit. It's Teresa Gregorio's pattern, but it's from the Great Northern collection, which I talked about a while back. I was going to get the book, and I don't know where I have it. I have 3 stacks of knitting stuff, books going around the house. But I'm kind of saving it until I feel like I have time to rewatch the first season or 2 of Twin Peaks when I work on it, because, I don't know, I just want to. I never watched the new season all the way through. But it just wasn't, I mean, I don't know, it's not the same. I love the nostalgia of season 1 and season 2, and I remember doing them, watching them when I was a teenager. So, let's see. I think I've shown you everything I've been making, and I talked about all the stuff. Oh, I did want to say that since I last had an episode, Laura of Jinx Yarns closed her shop, and you all know that. She had like her little closeout sale. There wasn't really a sale until the very end. What I got on sale was a sweater's quantity of her worsted weight. It's Favor House Atlantic. I don't know what that's a reference to. Probably a video game thing. Maybe Final Fantasy? I don't know. I don't know if this is coming out. It's very dark. It's like a black and maybe a dark almost blue or teal and green. So I don't know how this will look knit up. I know that she came out with a Woodman cardigan recently, and she did it in a black and red tonal or variegated yarn, and I'm wondering if this variegated look of these skeins will look similar to her Woodman. One thing I thought of doing in this was a pattern called Old Harry by Kat Riddell. It's really cute. It's just a fitted sweater, which I haven't purposefully knit something fitted in a while, but she uses color blocking also, but the color blocked area is also like ribbing on top, and then from the yoke down stockinette, and I just thought it was so cute. You can see possibly there we go. Yeah, you see the color blocking on top is all ribbed, and then from the yoke down is stockinette. I don't know, this may be too busy a shade for that, and if so, I'll just knit something more plain with this. Then there's always like the knit picks or the patterns that I have, but I just thought that would be really fun. Another thing I did in Laura's sale is I get some more vampire colorway, and I did it so I could make birds of a feather. I don't have to show you that shawl, you've seen it. It alternates areas of fingering weight yarn with lace weight mohair, and so this is kind of an eggplant or just a light purple shade by Color Pearl. This is the Adore lace base, so you can see those look really nice together. I think that will make a nice birds of a feather scarf or shawl. So that's kind of something that happened. I mean, it's been a while, so I didn't just go crazy buying everything. It's just been a while, and can't think if there's anything else I wanted to talk about doing. I did meet a local dyer to me. I've been talking about going to the local yarn store for a while, and I went and I met the owner, Rainey, and it's Strings and Things is the name of the shop. And she's actually an indie dyer herself. She has a shop, and I'll link to it on Etsy. U Hughes is the name of her company. But first I got a bamboo merino. Is it? Yeah, it's superwash merino and bamboo sock yarn, because we talked a while back about nylon alternatives. This is still superwash, but it does have bamboo in it, and I was just interested to try yarn that had bamboo in the sock base. I don't know who else is doing that right now. I know that Julianne of Lovebird Lane Yarns has a bamboo base. I'm thinking it's sock yarn. I don't know if you can see this. There's just a lot of gray and purple, kind of burgundy mauve, a little bit of navy. It's just a nice dark colorway, and this one is pretty similar but darker, a lot more of a striking blue. And it's called On the Dark Side. I got her chocolate base to go with it, so let me turn them, for some kind of 2-color accessory like a shawl. I just thought they would look nice together. They're not perfectly matchy-matchy, but I just thought the brown and a slightly reddish brown of this would look nice with this. So I really love this. I really do love these colorways. And it was nice to see her shop, what she had. She had a big sales section, and it was this Viking of Norway nature yarn. It's actually made in China, but it's a Norwegian brand. And this is kind of like Lopi, but actually to me it feels a little more like just a softer roving. It's not as rough as Lopi, or maybe as I don't know, substantial. But I thought it's bulky weight. I thought it would make nice hats. Maybe as gifts for somebody, maybe not. We'll see. But so anyway, that's all I've been doing. That's all I've got. Leave me a message telling me some of your coping techniques when you are down or grieving or something. And if you want that pattern from Vanessa Townley, leave your Ravelry name or your email in the comments. So I guess that's it, you guys. Yeah, I don't really have anything else. I'll leave you with this. El Paso del Canguro. No, this one's the best one. This is my favorite. La Gallina, like the chicken. Never fails.